Well, thank you. This is Dr. Jason W. Morrison, theologist, New South Wales, Australia, and I think we need to try and wrap this audit up. It's gone into the vicinity of something like 38 videos just on one study article of the Watchtower, study article 41 of the Watchtower Study Edition for October 2019, titled Stay Faithful Through the Great Tribulation. 38 videos I've produced as part of the audit. But we're down to the last two paragraphs now. We'll go to paragraph 18 and we'll read, what has Jehovah guaranteed? How does Revelation 7:9, 13 through 17 fill you with confidence about the future? Well, let's have a look at Revelation 7:9 and read, After this I saw, look, a great crowd. Now, the great crowd, as far as most believers understand, or theologists, or theologians, or scholars, or however you want to put it, ministers, pastors, is the body of Christ, is the church itself. That's who the great crowd is. Now, where's my controller there?
The world will you ever enter into the kingdom?
Well, they don't. The other sheep don't. They are subjects of the kingdom.
They're subjects of the kingdom.
Yes.
But wouldn't they have to mean that they are somehow in the kingdom?
Well, the 144,000 plus Christ are the kings and priests.
Okay.
Yeah. They don't look at, I've been through this with them 100 times. And it's interesting, if you look at the Greek for the word see, when Jesus says you will never see the kingdom, it doesn't just mean to perceive with your eyes. It's to understand, to know what to do about, to comprehend, all of this. And, I'd love for one to come to my door, because I would ask them, what's the main theme of your preaching? Oh, it's the kingdom. Oh, really? Are you born again? Oh, no, that's 144,000. Take them to John 3 and go, wait a minute. If, and taking the word of what that Greek word means, you're coming to my door, preaching to me a kingdom that you can't even comprehend. Why should I listen to you?
That does seem to be a problem, doesn't it?
Yeah. So I found this thing on Don't Say the Society Says. And this is another, Ron, we were talking earlier about gaslighting. Mm-hmm. You familiar with the term?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. So actually, I think I can share this. So, okay. So can you see that? Okay.
We can.
Yeah. Here's a quote from the 3/15/98. In order to avoid misunderstandings, Jehovah's Witnesses try to be careful about how they express themselves. And this is another classic language thing that the faithful and discreet slave does. They don't come out and say, this is what we want you to do. They say, this is what Jehovah's Witnesses do. And you go, oh, well, I'm a Jehovah's Witness, so I better do that. Anyway, instead of saying the society teaches, many witnesses prefer to use such expressions as the Bible says, or I understand the Bible to teach. So even though that's what they told you the doctrine was, you don't come out and say that that's what they said. You go, oh, well, this is what the Bible says, or this is what I understand the Bible to teach.
I think I see a problem here. Shouldn't they have begun this paragraph in order to create misunderstandings? Or
oh, no, they don't do that.
Or maybe in order to avoid proper understanding of what we really mean? Yeah.
But see, and then it goes on, it says, in this way, they emphasize the personal decision that each witness has made in accepting Bible teachings and avoid giving the false impression that witnesses are somehow bound to the dictates of some religious sect. So basically they're saying, to avoid people getting the real idea of what we're about, don't tell them this is what we taught you. Tell them that you came to that conclusion by your own Bible study.
Actually, I think what they're really saying is, you're not in a cult. You're not in a cult. I think that's what they're really trying to say.
Repeat after me. You're not in a cult.
Right.
Would this be, what's the term? Theocratic war strategy?
No, this is more classic gaslighting.
Okay.
I mean, basically, they are
Well, as I understand,
they're convincing these people that they came to these conclusions on their own. And when I talk to them in forums online, they're like, no, I don't believe that because the governing body taught me that. I believe it because it's my own Bible study. And you know that's not. They were told to say that.
You know, some years ago, I still have fun with this. I was talking with a Jehovah's Witness and asked him how he got involved with the Watchtower, and his response was, you know, I researched a lot of the world's religions, pretty much all the world's religions, and I came to the realization that the Watchtower was the one organization that seemed to most closely represent what God taught.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I didn't want to question him because I didn't really know him that well. I didn't know how he did his research, and so I kind of let that pass, and we went on to some other subjects. And then about a month or so later, I was meeting with another Jehovah's Witness, and I asked them how they got involved, and you know what they said? I researched all the world's religions, and I came to the conclusion that the Watchtower, and I went, wait a minute, I've heard this before.
Yes, I have too. Yes.
So I said, okay, I'm intrigued. What was it about the Urantia book that caused you to doubt its validity? And he kind of went cross-eyed. Said, what's the Urantia book? I said, well, it's kind of a little known group. You probably would have missed that one. Maybe you could tell me what was it about Theravada Buddhism that caused you to reject it as a plausible worldview? Because I don't know anything about Theravada Buddhism. And I said, how is it that you did your research? Maybe that'll help me understand how you came to your conclusions. He said, well, I read the Watchtower. I said, do you think it could have been biased?
Do you think do you think that the followers of Buddhism would have agreed that they were fairly represented in the Watchtower magazine?
Yes, but what Bob is pointing out here in these quotes is they couch it in such terms that as you're talking with the Jehovah's Witness, it leads you to believe that they have done the research and thinking on these issues and come to the conclusions. It's just not true.
Well,
right.
They actually have a book, and I forget the name of it now, but it's 384-page book. It's red, and like I said, I forget the name. But we went through it in our book studies, you know, the equivalent of a small group, and it actually taught about different religions.
Okay.
And so they've actually got a book put out by the Watchtower Society that tells you about all these other religions.
Do most Jehovah's Witnesses read that before they actually become Jehovah's Witnesses or after?
No, it's an old book now, and I suspect that most Jehovah's Witnesses don't even know it exists.
So whatever research they did it would seem to me, at least, whatever research a Jehovah's Witness would claim to have done, most likely was done after they'd already committed themselves to the Watchtower Society.
Oh, yeah.
Is that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, most people end up Jehovah's Witness. They study one or two books, Jehovah's Witness books, with the witnesses, and that's when they become witnesses. And
so people so witnesses who say that when in answer to the question, how did you become one? If they say, well, I researched all these world's religions, basically, they're just handing you a line. Really, in most cases.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's an old quote from way back too. It says, you know, within Jehovah's organization, there's no need to do heavy research. We have brothers that do it for you. And you know, a lot of people, most of them don't do any heavy research.
And you know, I understand there's also no need to think either, really.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, they kind of, as the Jehovah's Witnesses, the Watchtower kind of keeps you so busy doing other things that you don't really have time to do personal study and meditation and reflection, do you?
No, and I mean, their personal study is in Watchtower publications.
And what would they say to a person who started collecting a little library of the other world's religions? I mean, how would they treat a member who did that?
I mean, back when I was an elder, I would have, first of all, asked him if he was keeping up with all of the Watchtower stuff. And if he said no, then I would have counseled him that he needs to, pay attention to the right stuff.
Okay.
That and all of that other stuff is worldly stuff, and you can't trust it because it didn't come from Jehovah's organization.
I see. Yeah.
Okay. So the great crowd, that would be the average Jehovah's Witness coming to your door,
Yep.
is excluded from being born again.
Yep.
Is excluded from Christ being their mediator.
Yep.
Is excluded from understanding the Bible on their own.
Mm-hmm.
Is what's left?
They're included in the other sheep.
They're included in the other sheep. Aha. So that's really it. Their salvation. They are excluded from salvation directly. They are saved only by how they treat the anointed class. They are excluded from any actual Bible understanding on their own.
Yeah.
They can only understand the Bible as the governing body tells them what it means today, which may be different than what they told them it meant yesterday, and could probably and will probably be different than what they will tell them what it means tomorrow.
Yes. Yeah. Now, interesting, the whole thing with the little flock and the other sheep, because that comes from John chapter 10. Jesus there says that they will become one flock, one shepherd. And, because most Christians take the other sheep to be the Gentiles that Jesus was speaking of at that point. And the Watchtower will actually say that they have become one flock, one shepherd. I'm like, and I've been doing this with the witnesses online lately. I'm going, wait a minute, if they're one flock, one shepherd, why is there still a little flock? And why are there still other sheep? If the little flock and the other sheep are now one flock, one shepherd, the little flock and the other sheep cease to exist as separate entities.
Right.
See.
And they're like, oh, you just don't get it. I'm like, well, you're right, I don't. But if I read this, and unless you go to a Messianic church, there is no difference. The Jewish and Gentile believers are one flock, one shepherd. And even if you do go to a Messianic church, I've been to them, we're one flock, one shepherd. But only within the Jehovah's Witnesses does this distinction between the other flock and the other sheep, the little flock and the other sheep, continue to exist. If they're one flock, one shepherd, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference.
Wow.
So
Wow. Okay. Let's see. What other terminology can we pick on here? I mean, this is really important stuff if you're trying to communicate with a Jehovah's Witness who's come to your door, because if we don't understand their terminology, we are ultimately not communicating. And in many cases, they may not understand their own terminology. I've talked with Jehovah's Witnesses who actually think Jesus is their mediator.
Mm-hmm.
And when I point out that, well, wait, the Watchtower teaches that he's a mediator only for the anointed class.
Yep.
You derive benefits by association with them, but he's not actually your mediator. Yep. And they want to argue and say that I'm misunderstanding that, but I'm not sure how I am, that since I'm just reading it from the Watchtower.
Yeah. I'll put stuff right from the Watchtower up in a forum, and sometimes they'll accuse me of taking it out of context. I'm like, I didn't do any context. There it is.
Exactly.
But the thing with terminology too. I mean, even with born again, when witnesses go to the door, I think it's in the reasoning book somewhere. If the householder asks you if you're born again, you ask them, well, in what sense do you mean that?
in Jesus' sense.
Well, and what they'll normally go to is, oh, do you mean have I undergone a big change in my life? And they will say, yes, I have. And for them, the change came through their own effort.
Okay.
Yeah.
rather than a spiritual rebirth. And if you pin them down and go, no, I mean born again in the way Jesus said it in John chapter 3, they'll go, oh no, that's only for the 144,000.
Okay. Now, we have a question here from one of the viewers. Bridget wants to know what scriptures JWs use to support the idea that they get, quote, benefits, unquote, from the new covenant without being part of it.
I don't know. Is that a Jehovah's Witness thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of a recurring theme. Whenever they say that the other sheep aren't included in something like the new covenant, they say, oh, but they derive benefits from it. There's no scriptural backing for that whatsoever.
Right. So that just comes from the governing body.
Yeah. Well, it's like they're throwing a bone to the other sheep. Well, yeah, you're not part of the new covenant, but you get benefits from it. You're not born again, but you get benefits from those who are.
By your association with them, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So you don't have salvation directly. Your salvation is dependent solely on how you treat the anointed class. So you derive the benefit of salvation by your association with them. You don't have direct salvation.
Well, it's not even your salvation from that. It's just whether or not you make it into the millennium.
Right.
So when you think about salvation for Jehovah's Witnesses, I mean, the anointed are saved basically when they die. At that point, they
don't even have salvation prior to death.
Oh, no. You right up till the moment of death, they can prove unfaithful.
Yeah.
And they lose their spot. Okay?
So then is there like 139,999?
Oh, no, because the Holy Spirit grabs somebody else right away.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. In fact, a good friend of mine, he and I were pioneer partners, fellow elders. He partook for a while. He all of a sudden started partaking at the memorial. And so, like any of the other anointed, new anointed, we figured he was just chosen to replace somebody else. And I wasn't an elder at the time, but I was at the point where he announced to the rest of the body of elders that he was no longer partaking. And I was like,
okay,
how does that work? And we were out going door to door. I said, hey, Art, what's the deal? He goes, well, he says, I don't know, but all I can figure is that the guy that I was chosen to replace came back. well, that flies in the face of witness teaching. For the anointed, once you're gone, you're gone. But anyway, where I'm going with this is, so say you're on earth when Christ returns, Armageddon takes place. You have to go all the way through the Great Tribulation. Then you have to go through the 1,000 years where you basically work your way back to perfection. And then at the end, when Satan is let out of the abyss, at the end of the 1,000 years, and he goes forth to mislead and all of this, that's like a final exam for Jehovah's Witnesses.
Wow.
So if you're one of the other sheep, you have to pass that final test. Only then are you adopted as one of God's children.
Okay, so it's a perpetual works type salvation.
No, it's not works.
What is it?
No, they'll tell you it's not.
Are you gaslighting me again?
Now that's gaslighting. I recognize that.
Ron, do we have another word from a sponsor here?
Yeah, in fact, you know what? We have a brand new sponsor this week. I'm very proud of this new sponsor. So one day, Rob Bell was walking along, not watching where he was going, and he smacked right into the Dalai Lama. And the Dalai Lama said, hey, you got Christianity in my Buddhism. And Rob Bell said, hey, you got Buddhism in my Christianity. And then they decided that it's not all about truth, but experience. And isn't taste one of the best experiences? And that's why we have two great faiths that taste great together. Reese's Jesus Buddha Cups, a new sponsor this week on our Midwest Christian Outreach Unknown webcast. Try them out. See how they go.
Now, just so everyone is aware, this is not original with us, but we couldn't find the originator of it. And so whoever they are, if they will identify themselves, we will give them appropriate credit. That is sad but true. It's not necessarily directly related to the Watchtower, but we do find that their truth, the tastes seem to change from time to time, don't they, Bob?
They certainly do.
They do.
Yep. Actually, I was looking for another one where for years they taught, so starting in the 1970s, so they get into all of this figurative stuff. And they said, remember I said that the anointed are the Israel of God and the other sheep are not? This casts the other sheep in the role of spiritual Gentiles.
Spiritual
Gentiles.
Okay.
Yeah. So the anointed are spiritual Jews.
Okay.
So you're either Jewish or you're not. And if you're not, you're a Gentile.
They also are designated by tribes in the book of Revelation.
They are.
Yeah, but those are figurative.
But that kind of makes them spiritual Jews, right? That may be consistent.
Oh, the 144,000, yeah.
Yeah.
But for years, they taught that the great crowd worshiped Jehovah in a figurative court of the Gentiles in the great heavenly or earthly temple. Okay?
Figurative court of the Gentiles.
Yep.
So there's spiritual Jews and spiritual Gentiles.
Yes. So if you're a spiritual Gentile, you can't go into the holy or the holy of holies. You got to worship God in this courtyard of the Gentiles.
I have another question. I have another question.
Let me finish this one out, and okay. you'll get. So they taught this for 25 years. Okay, 1998 they came out with an article about this court of the Gentiles, and it says the great crowd worships with anointed Christians in the earthly courtyard of Jehovah's great spiritual temple. There is no reason to conclude that they are in a separate court of the Gentiles.
Okay.
So they flat out says there is no reason to believe basically what we just taught you for 25 years.
Right.
I would tend to agree.
So what we taught you for 25 years was unreasonable. There was no reason for it.
And we could have disfellowshipped you if you didn't believe it for those 25 years. But now there's no reason to believe that.
And even though there's no reason to believe that now, you still wouldn't get reinstated automatically, even though you were right. No, you might have been right from a biblical standpoint, but you were wrong for going against the organization. That's the real
doubting Joe's organization.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
So Don, was it you?
Here's my question.
Go ahead.
I love the spiritual stuff there. Spiritual Israel or spiritual Gentiles. Does that mean that according to Revelation 7 and 14, they are all spiritual males? Because there's obviously some anointed who think they're females, or who are females, or at least self-identify as females, but they're actually spiritual males, and that they're spiritual virgins. Would that be the case?
What is a spiritual virgin? That's what I want to know.
I don't know.
So one of the terms that the witnesses use a lot is spiritual adultery or spiritual fornication.
Okay.
So if you become involved in some false religion, you've committed spiritual adultery.
So these have to be people who
are figurative virgins.
They've not been known by any other religion.
Yeah. But when you look at the whole Revelation 7 thing, it's just bizarre because they will say that the 12 tribes are figurative.
Right.
The number 12,000 for each of the 12 tribes is figurative.
Oh,
right.
So they're
but the number 144,000 is literal.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Gee.
And virgin is figurative.
Figurative also. They haven't been known by another religion. Yes.
And so what's to me the audacity. What do you want to call this? The audacity of dope? I don't know. The sheer audacity to make final pontifications, authoritative proclamations that are binding on the people on issues, on matters that are not central apparently to salvation, unless they have maybe I'm sure their doctrine is that you must follow. It is a matter central to salvation to always be in agreement with the governing body, to always be in agreement. And yet the governing body can steer you wrong, and has steered you wrong many times. So
and they've even written about that. So that's what Bob was talking about. Just because you were right on something that they had taught falsely for 25 years, and now they are teaching that there's no reason to believe what they have been teaching for 25 years. And if you had been kicked out of the Watchtower for running ahead of the organization during that 25 years, you are not automatically reinstated because you were right, because you were wrong in the way you went about it. You doubted the governing body.
And yet they want they want their people to lie to us and tell us that, they don't believe things because the society says, but they believe things because the Bible says.
Yeah, see, they're not lying because they believe it themselves. They've been gaslighted to the point where they buy that illusion themselves.
So, but the society really, I personally, I don't buy it that the society doesn't know that they are telling people to lie to us. I can sort of get the idea that the people who have been gaslighted have suppressed that notion in their minds. But when I read that text that you display, they're clearly counseling people to lie. They're clearly telling people.
No, they just want to give the proper impression. That's all.
By lying.
Well, it's an intentional misrepresentation. Let me ask you. I'm going to ask you a question here. I need to do something. This is, this is our first show after New Year, and one of my New Year's resolution, which is one that everyone makes, is I'm going to exercise more to lose weight. I want to start a new exercise regimen, and so I decided to walk around the block twice a day. I want to walk around the block, and I went out and purchased a block for that purpose.
I hear you live out, well, when you live out in the middle of nowhere, Don.
So my exercise block, I can place it on the floor. I can walk around it twice, and then I can sit and relax after I'm done. And I have walked around the block twice that day. Now, was I intentionally deceiving when I said I walked around the block twice a day before I showed you what the block was? The answer is yes, because you have this idea that I'm actually walking around the neighborhood out here. And so, that's lying.
Yeah. So, one of my goals for 2016 was to lose 10 pounds. Only 15 to go.
Only 15 to go.
So, it's, back to the thing with the governing body.
I lost 10 pounds, but in American money, it was, I think, about $12.75. Go ahead.
Yeah. The thing with the governing body, and Ron, I think Don and I were talking about it before you got here. In 2013, the governing body declared, prior to 2013, all of the remaining anointed on the earth comprised a faithful and discreet slave. In 2013, the governing body declared themselves the faithful and discreet slave. Now, along with that, they said, let me see if I get this straight, that they used to teach that the faithful and discreet slave was assigned to feed the domestics of the Lord's household in 33. Well, now it happened in 1919. They used to believe that the slave was appointed over all the Lord's belongings in 1919. Now it's at Christ's return. So when you think about it, when they made all of this, you go, now wait a minute, okay, you're saying you're the faithful and discreet slave. Now let's go over the things that you were wrong about. You were wrong about when you were assigned to feed the domestics of the master's household. You were wrong about when you are appointed over all the master's belongings, because when he came back, he found you faithfully serving. And you were also wrong about who you are. Why should I believe you? it amazes me that more of Jehovah's, they didn't get more fallout from this. The people said, no, wait a minute. Faithful and discreet slave, they're the faithful and discreet slave. They were wrong about all this stuff. And they said that the faithful and discreet slave was assigned to start feeding in 1919. 1919, they still thought that Charles Russell was the faithful and discreet slave,
right.
and he was dead. He was dead.
Right. In fact, the faithful and discreet slave, they called him the Laodicean minister.
Right.
That seems to me that's on his headstone as well, isn't it?
On that pyramid, yeah.
Yeah, on the pyramid, yeah. So, Melissa Bremer asked,
Hi, Melissa.
Yeah, which 1981 magazine or article did you quote from earlier?
About 22 minutes ago.
About 22 minutes ago, yeah.
What I did 5 minutes ago. You kidding me? I'm not sure which. What was the subject?
It doesn't. She doesn't say. I don't know.
Yeah, I saw the little blurb pop up, but I quoted from a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Well, you know what, Melissa, you can certainly email us, and we will get that to you.
Yeah, Facebook me, Melissa.
Yeah, Facebook Bob. In fact, he's got a whole 30-page document that he's been working on. He may share a page or two with you while he's got that in progress. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what, guys? We are running over tonight a few minutes, which is okay, but I think we need to kind of wrap it up, and we're going to revisit some terminology again in the future as we talk about not only the Watchtower, but Scientology and some other groups, because terminology is very, very important. Otherwise, as I said when we started off, you're not really communicating. When I do marital counseling, that is part of the process of for me in talking to the future husband and wife, and that is the definition of your terms. And a story I use is when I was dating this young lady that I eventually married, Joy, asked me one day if I would go shopping with her, and I said sure. And to me, it was a fairly simple process. We would get in the car, we would drive to the mall, we'd park 3 or 4 spaces from the door, we would walk in to the women's section. She'd buy a blouse. It would be blue, whatever size she was wearing. And we'd be out of there. 22 minutes, we're done. Right?
You foolish man.
Exactly. In reality, we got there, and I realized after a while that she didn't mean shopping. She meant shopping. We're going to go to the mall. We're going to walk around. We're going to have a Coke. Could be there an hour or two, may not buy anything, because this is a relationship. It is not a project to accomplish. And so it was very frustrating because we weren't communicating. We didn't have the same definitions for our terms. So we're going to do something on that relative to religious groups. What do they mean when they say, so that we understand that. But for tonight, Bob, we're gonna thank you for being with us. I really enjoy having you on.
Yes.
These kinds
always
of
a pleasure.
Always a pressure. Yes.
And Ron is going to kind of do our goodbyes from our various sponsors.
Or the people who help make this show possible. Yes, let's give credit to where credit is due. Our resident cult leader profiler is Neil before me. Our tinfoil hat provisioner is Justin Case. Our Jehovah's Witnesses coverage comes from Armageddon and D. Opposer. Our Mormons Archives manager is Polly Gummas. Our Liberal Denominations Bureau Chief is Lou C. Goosey. Our transgender issues coverage comes from Ben Hur. Our special correspondent for cults based on the Hindenburg disaster and flying turkeys, Ode to Humanity. Our fact-checking supervisor is Yoleg Pulling. Our technical assistance comes through Murky Research. Our legal advisors are at the law firm of Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe. Our grievance resolutions director is Giovanna Pisami. Our director of privacy assurance, wiretapping, and our original idea sourcing comes from Drew A. Blank. The Unknown Webcast is a production of Midwest Christian Outreach, Inc. in cooperation with Emergency Manicure Productions, both of which are solely responsible for its content, but you will never, ever be able to.
Yeah, Dr. Jason Morrison, theologist again. I just want to say thank you for watching the videos, and I hope you got plenty of self-rediscovery and freedom out of it. If you watched it on YouTube, please share or like. maybe even comment. If you watch it on Facebook, like, comment, share. But most of all, get out and live. This isn't a rehearsal. You've got a one-off life. Don't let your loyalty and your faithfulness blind you to the life that you should be experiencing. Till the next video, thank you for watching, and bye for now.